people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. The rematch between Adelaida Ruiz and Virginia Fuchs has been officially rescheduled for Saturday, July 18th, and it's been a long time coming. Virginia Fuchs is yet another fighter who was screwed over by the alphabets, the WBC in particular. If you don't know the story, when Virginia Fuchs fought Adelaida Ruiz more than a year ago, it was for a WBC interim title, as a segue to eventually fight for the full one that Ashley Gonzalez held at the time. Virginia Fuchs wins the fight, becomes interim champion, but suffers a grotesque injury to her thumb that benches her for the rest of the year. Ashley Gonzalez, for whatever reason, ends up dropping her WBC title. When this happens, Virginia Fuchs is already WBC interim champion, and instead of being elevated to full champion like what they did for Mario Barrios in the men's welterweight division, they instead give the shot to Adelaida Ruiz, who had already been beaten by Virginia Fuchs.
They fucked her.
To make matters worse, at the time that they made this decision, Virginia had already recovered from her injury. She was ready to go. She was ready to fight. Ready to go back in there against Adelaida to fight for the vacant title. Instead, they let Adelaida Ruiz fight somebody else. Canada's own Alexis Kubicki, who was coming off a knockout loss to Gabby Fundora. It's almost like the World Boxing Council was doing a favor to Adelaida, like they preferred that she get the belt instead of Virginia, who sports a professional record of 4 wins with no losses and no draws, 1 recorded knockout. Last in action well over a year ago in August of 2024. She missed the entirety of the previous year, waiting for her crack at the apple, waiting for her title shot. Now going into the rematch with Adelaida, she's collected significant ring rust that she needs to shake off, and even though I picked her to win the first fight, I don't know that she can win the second. Not under these circumstances. Because it's not like the first fight was a whitewash. It's not like when she beat Adelaida, it was a blowout. She had to work for that win, and what she got was a split decision. Under these circumstances, she might lose. She hasn't fought in a long time, since August of last year, whereas Adelaida has seen action more recently, in November of the previous one. Putting distance between herself and that decision loss to Ginny, she fought 2 times in the previous year, once in July, then again in November, so she doesn't have any ring rust to shake off. Best described as a very aggressive, pressure fighter, whereas Virginia is more the boxer, more the mover. With only 4 professional fights, she's got the look of a boxer-puncher, which is why she was able to deal with the pressure and pressure fighting of Adelaida. But that seems all but a long time ago, and a lot has happened since then to where I don't know if she can beat Adelaida now. Ginny's not getting any younger. I believe she's 37 going on 38 years old. The hope has got to be that she's kept herself up enough in the previous calendar year that she can still be sharp enough to beat Adelaida, but it seems like a tall ask, because as stated, when they initially met, that was not an easy fight for Virginia Fuchs. Nicknamed the Captain for being the captain of the USA boxing team in the amateurs, she was a decorated amateur, but as a professional, it's hard to say Ginny's career has had the same traction and the same momentum. One of these really good fighters that's fallen through the cracks. Because there's no good reason for the World Boxing Council to not have just elevated her to full champion in the previous year, or at minimum, let her run it back with Adelaida. If there were gonna be a rematch, it should have happened already. It should have happened last year.
They fucked her.
The WBC fucked her. They didn't want her to have that belt. That's the moral of the story. Now she's facing an uphill battle with a fighter that already gave her a hard time. And I reiterate, this is the same broken system that people are fighting to protect. Now that Zoof has entered into the boxing space, and they have their own separate framework, an alternative to the existing one.
This is what they're fighting to protect.
The system that left Virginia Fuchs in limbo for over a year, the system that left Shakram Giasov in limbo for about 2, neither of which getting the title shot they so rightfully earned. This is what they're fighting to protect. These people are fucking morons. Then super middleweight news. Newly crowned WBA champion Jaime Munguia eyes title unification with Hamza Shiraz on the Canelo vs. Mabili undercard. Munguia dominated Armando Resendiz last weekend in Las Vegas by unanimous decision to secure the WBA super middleweight crown. With the win, Munguia, a former junior middleweight champion, ended a 9-year drought without a belt and also catapulted up the ring rankings to number 5 in the division. In a fight that I said he would win, I said he'd beat Armando Resendiz. During an interview with The Ring, the 29-year-old Tijuana native said he wants to move forward with a potential title unification bout on the Mexico vs. the World show September 12th in Saudi, headlined by stablemate Canelo Alvarez's challenge of WBC champion Christian Mabili. That's the perfect addition to that show for more reasons than one. Not just the quality of the card overall, but what happens afterwards. Because the running theme is Mexico versus the world, and Jaime Munguia is a Mexican native, but also because Hamza Shiraz aspires to challenge his stablemate Canelo Alvarez. Should he win his fight with Christian Mabili and Hamza wins his fight with Jaime, that sets up a unification between them. Sitting in the number 1 spot for Munguia's desired matchup is Hamza Shiraz, who fought Alem Bajic for the vacant WBO title and knocked him out in about 2 rounds? The Canelo vs. Mabili card is definitely an event that I want to be a part of, Munguia told The Ring. There have been some talks, and we are waiting to see what happens. I'm ready to be in the biggest fights, and I'm definitely open to Shiraz. He's a great fighter. Let's see what happens with his fight later this month. Oh, we saw what happened yesterday. Didn't last that long. Nobody expected it to. There are a lot of big names in the division, like Shiraz, Mabili, Iglesias, a complicated southpaw who's tall, and other guys who are really important. The division is getting interesting, and there are a lot of fights to make. So it would seem that the newly minted WBA champion is now walking back talks to move back down to the middleweight division. He means to stay at super middle, and super middle is more interesting for it. Munguia can make a significant splash by fighting a host of credible counterparts, including the IBF champion Iglesias, ranked at number 3 by The Ring, Lester the Molester Martinez, Diego Pacheco, Caleb Plant, as well as Jermall Charlo and Edgar Berlanga. The win against Resendiz was the second in a row for Munguia since a shocking one-punch knockout loss to Bruno Surace in December of 2024, having avenged the result in a rematch last May. Really happy and proud to be back on top of my game as a world champion, said Munguia. I've made a lot of improvements in different areas over the last year. Coach Eddie Reynoso has been helping me improve my defense and footwork. That gave me the confidence that was key to delivering on the night because I knew of the work that I'd put in. The Resendiz fight looked easy, but it wasn't at all. I fought a really strong fighter. Resendiz's punches were strong, but I definitely put in the work and made the adjustments in between rounds. I was very prepared and confident, so that confidence... That's why he wants to fight Shiraz. It's hard to say who wins the fight, or who the bookies would have as the favorite, since I think either guy can hurt either guy. I think Jaime Munguia packs a big enough punch that he can hurt Hamza Shiraz. He can stop him, but the same is definitely true in reverse, because Jaime's the guy who got stopped by a little-known Frenchman with only a handful of knockouts. And there have not been a lot of situations where Jaime Munguia would be the smaller fighter that has to get inside. I think this would be the first time we would have ever seen that. Usually, Jaime towers over his opponents, whether it's at 154 or even at 168. He was noticeably taller and longer than Armando Resendiz, which would not be the case against Shiraz. How many times have you seen it where Jaime's the smaller guy? I believe the fight with Hamza would require Jaime to return to his pressure-fighting roots, crashing the pocket and unloading salvos of punches once he gets there. The trick is actually getting there and not getting knocked out in the process. For Jaime Munguia, it's all about closing the distance, whereas for Hamza, being taller, it's about maintaining it. Maintaining a pocket between him and Jaime by sticking the jab out there and keeping it out there, bringing the backhand over if Jaime gets too froggy. It doesn't behoove Hamza Shiraz to engage Jaime mid-range to inside, because at that proximity, anybody can crack anybody. Yeah, sure, he can probably get in with some hard hooks on Jaime like he did against Edgar Berlanga, but the same is true in reverse. And Jaime Jaime is a more fluid fighter in the pocket than anybody that Hamza's fought so far. That's his sweet spot. I don't know how the bookies are going to have it. I don't know who the bookies would have as a favorite going in, but in my opinion, that's a 50-50 fight. That's even money. Either guy can hurt either guy. I like the fight, and it makes a lot of sense for Jaime, for more reasons than one. You know, boxing on Canelo Alvarez's undercard, you're going to get a really good payday. Better than if you tried to make an Iglesias fight on your own.
The only other champion who's available.
The same applies for Hamza Shiraz now that he's got a belt. Makes a lot of sense for him to box on another one of Turkey's shows, and I'm sure that Turkey would be happy to use him. It makes more sense unifying with Jaime than unifying with Iglesias. You'd make more money with Jaime.
And with Jaime, you can use a victory over him as a segue to Canelo Alvarez, as Jaime would be a common opponent between yous, and if Canelo beats Mobili, if Canelo wins a belt, you can unify titles with him in May of the following year. It makes perfect sense, too much sense, not to do it. Well, isn't September a little bit too soon for Hamza to come back?
Not really. He didn't break a sweat in there yesterday with Alem Bejic. The fight only lasted 2 rounds, and he didn't get hit with nothing. The training camp for the fight was actually more rigorous than the fight itself. So, if he takes all of June off and most of July, he can start training towards the end all through August to come back in September.
Plenty of time. Take the rest of this month off, all of June, start training towards the end of July, all through August, to come back in September and do what he needs to do.
The opportunity is there, and I very much like the idea of Munguia versus Shiraz. That's an even fight.
Come on. Alright, last 10 seconds. Rico can survive this. Oh, landing a couple. Oh, it's the end of the round, is it? Oh, what? He stopped it! No f***ing way. For a world title fight, he stopped it with about 5 or 6 unanswered shots. What?
That's mad when you think about it, because Usyk and Fury had a similar... it was even worse than that.
Mate, what the f***ing hell's that? What a robbery. What a fix that is. That is f***ing outrageous. Mate, 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was, we were at Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois ringside. Mate, that happened probably 10 times. Sent Fabio Wardley out there, big swollen eye on one side, nose squash, big swelling on his forehead. Been dropped 5 times in the fight, sent him out again for another round. Stopped it about 3 rounds too late. Rico gets stumbled to his knee. They let him up with 10 seconds left. He lands a few unanswered shots. They don't even let him make it to the end of the round. It's a f***ing robbery. What the f*** is that? F***ing boxing don't want anyone else to win. Simple as that. They want the boxers with the amateur style coming in, winning their Olympic medal, and then switching over and being unbeaten pros. That's what they want. They don't like other combat sports. It's bullshit.
Yesterday's controversial outcome has put Alexander Usyk in the unusual position of being subject to criticism where most of his career he never gave you anything to complain about, but there are a lot of people complaining about yesterday's fight, including UFC champion Tom Aspinall, and he's not alone. D Styles, friend of the channel, said Usyk is better pound for pound than Inoue because he beat a big fat Fury who outweighed him by 40 pounds.
Not this bad take again.
It isn't aging well right now, and no, I'm not letting it go. Inoue can't beat someone 40 pounds heavier than him. Body weight mass percentage aside, yes he would, if they were fat and much less skilled.
Was Anthony Joshua fat? Was Daniel Dubois fat?
It seems that the whole crux of this argument centers around Tyson Fury not being body beautiful, that he does have love handles. He is on the fatter end of the spectrum, he is, but Anthony Joshua isn't. That guy's an Adonis.
Daniel Dubois isn't. That guy's a fucking ox. How's that victory aging for Usyk, D Styles?
D Styles continued, heavyweight boxing is exciting, but it's on the low end of the totem pole skill-wise. This is why guys that have 40-pound weight advantages lose to smaller guys, and why a guy like Jai Opataya can move up now and be top 10 immediately, even if there's a bunch of dudes that outweigh him by 30 plus.
Well, listen, until Jai Opataya does it, you can't give him the credit for something that's only happening in your own mind. The reality of it is the ratio of smaller fighters that move up to heavyweight and win a title.
Buddy, I can count on one hand how many cruiserweights have actually done that, and it's not a lot. Who are you talking about, Evander Holyfield? David Hay?
Usyk?
Tell me, how many cruiserweight champions have there been since the division was developed versus how many of them actually moved up and became champions at heavy? What you'll find is that it's not a lot because it's not easy. Not as easy as you make it out to be. And as far as heavyweights not being as skilled as their smaller counterparts? Well, that was never the argument.
Tell me something I don't know.
The argument was never that the heavyweights are as skilled as the smaller fighters, it's that they're so big, they don't need to be. Because after a while, if you've got enough size, the other guy's skills don't matter. That's why Jorge Linares, a 3-weight world champion, moved up to 140 and got annihilated by a fucking gatekeeper.
A guy who wasn't as skilled as he is, wasn't as decorated a fighter.
It's like you've seen Alexander Usyk move up to heavyweight, beat all of these guys, and you get it in your head that it's easy.
Because you're saying that they're less skilled.
When them being as skilled as their smaller counterparts was never the argument. The argument was these guys are so big, they don't need to be as skilled as an Inoue. Or do you think a heavyweight is going to sit there fencing and fiddling with a super bantamweight?
Doesn't have to. He can just mow him down off of size alone.
You're saying that Inoue can beat a fighter who outweighs him by 40 pounds on the premise that the fighter is less skilled. Well, that would require him to move up to super middle, and don't even put him in there with a champion. Put him in there with a Kevin Lele Sajo.
Who's not a champion, he's not even the biggest of super middleweights, and he's not actually as skilled as Inoue, and Kevin would still run over him. He would mow him down, because at some point, size matters.
I don't know why boxing fans struggle with this. These heavyweights, many of them who aren't even that good, would mow down most pound-for-pound fighters. I know you don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. And that's why the pound-for-pound conversation is largely theoretical. It relies on the premise if these smaller fighters were the same size as a heavyweight with the skills they got.
But that's just a theory. For the majority of those fighters, it's figurative. Whereas for Usyk, it's literal. And I told you that already.
He literally went up there and beat everybody with a belt. You just don't want to give him credit for it. Or acknowledge the roots of what pound for pound is and what it means. All it means is that he's not as big as those guys, but he is more skilled. And that's why he beat them.
That isn't all of a sudden invalidated because Usyk got older. This is a disingenuous argument at best. I mean, Usyk is close to 40, you know. At some point, Father Time catches up.
So what are you gonna do? Wait until he does so you can pretend you were right about something? Listen,
Look.
I don't agree with yesterday's stoppage. I think it's the worst I've seen Alexander Usyk, but I think it's mostly because he was either asleep at the wheel or he got old. That doesn't invalidate his pound-for-pound status for what he managed to accomplish.
That's just a silly argument.
It could just as easily be that he didn't take Rico Verhoeven seriously, because why would he? The guy only had one recorded boxing match. Or could be that he's finally slowing down and finally starting to look his age. The only way you have an argument is if you remove all the context and remove all the nuance so that you can pat yourself on the back and pretend that you were right about something.
And I like these styles. You know, I grew up with the guy back in 75. I agree with him on most of what he says, but not this. This is just an exceptionally bad boxing take.
Because the argument never was that the heavyweights are just as skilled as their smaller counterparts. The argument was these guys are so big, they don't need to be as skilled. They can mow the little guys down in most situations, which is true most of the time.
Save Alexander Usyk, which is why he's special.